came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What do you mean by all these droves I meet? To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. But Esau said, "I have already plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." "No, please," said Jacob, "if I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably. Please accept the present that was brought to you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all that I need." And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted it. Then Esau said, "Let us be on our way. I'll accompany you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are tender, and that I must care for the ewes and the cows that are nursing their young. If they are driven hard just one day, all the animals will die. So let my Lord go on ahead of his servant, while I move along slowly at the pace of the droves behind me, and that of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir." Esau said, "Then let me leave some of my men with you." "But why do that?" Jacob asked. "Just let me find favor in your eyes, my lord." So that day Esau started out on his way back to Seir. Jacob, however, went to Succoth, where he built a place for himself and made a shelter for his livestock. That is why the place is called Succoth. As soon as Jacob, in the beginning of the chapter, sees Esau and his 400 men, what does he do? Does a couple different things. What does he do? Separates who?
His wives and his maidservants and their children.
Yeah. Notice the maidservants are really his concubines or his wives, but they're secondary wives. So, and he puts them in a certain order, which is interesting. Now, who goes first, though, of all the groups, though?
Maidservants.
Yeah, the maidservants go first among the family, but remember, where is he in the crowd?
He's first.
He's first. He goes first. So he's not just throwing his family out there and hiding in the background, you know. And he goes out first and puts himself in front of everybody that's with him. And you could say he arranged the wives and the children in order of their
importance to him.
I think you're right. He definitely, we know for sure, he definitely favored Rachel and Joseph, and Leah was clearly second, and the maidservants were third in the order of his favoritism. I'm sure he loved them all, but he definitely had his favorites.
Maybe he thought Leah would scare off. So.
So either way, they get together. Now, something very unexpected happens, though. As soon as Jacob comes forward and confronts himself to seeing Esau, what happens? This is kind of unexpected. Remember, the last time Esau was in the presence of Jacob, what was his intention? He was going to kill him. He wanted to kill him. He hated him. And now, what's he doing?
Hugging, kissing.
Yeah, hugging and kissing him and weeping. And how long has it been since they've seen each other?
Over 20 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a while, over 20 years. So apparently in 20 years, Esau mellowed a little bit. Who here in this room in the last 20 years has mellowed a little bit? Raise your hand. I mellowed a lot. Age does that to you. I don't know why it does, but it really does. And I think Esau certainly mellowed himself. Was Esau a poor man? No. He was rich. He was powerful. I mean, he's leading an army of 400 men. He doesn't even need all the flocks and herds that Jacob has given him. He says, "Why are you giving me all this stuff? Just take it back. I don't need it. I got 20. But Jacob insists that he take it all, and he finally relents, As a result, they obviously have begun a new relationship on a new plane that is quite unexpected. Do you think Jacob was a little relieved, to say the least? What's the expression he uses, how relieved he is? When he saw his face, he thought he was seeing what? The face of God. Which I think he meant it as an expression, because he received him favorably. So, I think he's actually given God credit for the reaction of Esau in this particular place. And you can see it throughout the scriptures all the time that God is dealing with Jacob. When Jacob gets himself in a pickle, God seems to get him out of it almost every single time. And he seems to favor him a lot in most situations, not everyone, but most situations. So they begin to have a discussion then, and Esau, where does Esau want to go from this point? I probably should have brought a map. Where does Esau want to go? Seir, which is in the region of Edom. It's a large area. He didn't say exactly where in Seir he wanted to go, but it is, when you look at a map of Israel, it's in the southeastern region on the other side of the Jordan River, just opposite the Dead Sea. It's kind of in that whole area right there, and that is the region of Edom, and that's the historical place where the descendants of Esau lived for centuries, and technically they're probably still there to this day. So that's the region they lived in, and how far in Seir he went, we don't know. Now, is that where Jacob wants to go, though? Where does Jacob want to go?
Back to the promised land.
Huh?
Back to Israel, or promised land, or Canaan,
Yeah,
Canaan, basically.
Yeah, that's actually to the east
Yeah.
of the Jordan River. Esau's to the west of the Jordan River, so, which is technically called at that time the land of Canaan. And that's where he wants to go, and that's where God wants him to go also. So he makes a suggestion that they travel together, Esau does. But what does Jacob react to when he says, let's travel together to Seir? No.
Got a lot of young flocks. One day of hard driving would kill them.
Yeah, and most people assume then that means then, if that's the time of calves being born, it's probably in the fall, because that was a typical life cycle of those type of animals. So usually that means it was probably in the fall that this was happening. And winter was coming soon. I don't know how cold it gets there, but it does get cold there. They do get snow. So Jacob says, I can't go that fast, because he's got 400 men probably on horses, and there's no way he's gonna keep up with his family, with Esau and his crew. But Esau even volunteers to lead some of his men with him, probably to protect maybe Jacob. But Jacob turns that down too. He says, no, I don't need that, because he probably also has something else in mind too. But if you look here, where was that verse? Jacob makes the point that he's gonna move along at some point and meet Esau in Seir. But as you see, as the discussion goes in verse 16, it says, so that day Esau started on his way back to Seir. Jacob, however, went to Succoth, where he built a place for himself and made shelter for his livestock. So you can see that after Esau, he mentioned Jacob actually changes the plan without telling Esau. So does Jacob lie to Esau when he intimates that he's going to travel with him to Seir, and changes his mind and goes west without saying anything? Is that a lie?
Well, he alludes. He doesn't say he's not.
Okay,
It'd be easy to think, even reading it, you think that he's going to.
yeah. And I found it kind of interesting when I was looking at some of the commentaries. Sometimes in commentaries, if you guys ever read them very often, certain individuals sometimes really like to lay down the law when it comes to certain biblical characters and really demonize them for every little thing that they do. Not mentioning the fact that what's going on in your life too, you know, it's kind of, to me, it's really judgmental. First off, we gotta realize too, the scriptures don't say that Jacob lied. It does not say that, is to go beyond written to say that he did. And the fact of the matter is there's more to the story, and there always is. There's always more to the story sometimes than when you just look at the initial dialogue here too. When you start to read other scriptures and other places, you begin to realize there's more to the story. First off, Esau is heading south, and he's with a large group of men. They're traveling fast. What time of year was it again? Fall. Now, when you think of it's fall time, he decides he's going to build some shelters in a place called Succoth, which literally means shelters. Why would he be building shelters in the fall? Yeah, he's built a place for his livestock to be able to hold out the cold winter and nurture them. And you don't want to be traveling with herds with small calves in the middle of winter, not to mention his own family members too. So it's winter, it's not the greatest time to be traveling in the first place. And there's other things going on also too that we may not realize that first off, he does meet Esau later on. You look at Genesis chapter 36, there's more than one time, and there may have been quite a bit of contact between the two of them. In Genesis 36, it mentions the fact that they were together because they went, when Isaac dies, they're together at the funeral. Both brothers are there, and Esau, because they were living together in certain areas in southern Israel, Esau decides to move away from the group, just kind of like Lot and Abraham did, because their flocks were too big and they had to separate from one another. So it's not surprising that that situation happens where they have to move apart, but they did have contact with one another through the years, and it's certain that Jacob and Esau did meet up. So to say he lied is not true. It's just saying they met together later on, not initially right away. So to say that he lied is kind of harsh for some of the Bible commentators to say stuff like that. It really annoys me sometimes when I'm reading it, that they jump to such conclusions as that. So Jacob then, after he leaves, he stays in Shechem for a little while. We don't know exactly how long. And so we're going to be going over to chapter 34 now. Any questions on chapter 33?
Yeah, I think that showed a lot of faith, though, how Jacob had his faith had increased, because there was a risk by him doing that. I mean, Esau could have got mad and came after him. It sounds like Esau had a lot more power at that point than
Perhaps.
than he did. But he and I think that had something to do a little bit with the wrestling with God. It kind of gave him confidence that
True.
he could make the right decision this time.
Yeah.
And go where God wanted him to go.
Yeah.
Versus making the decision that most people would have made and went with Esau.
Yeah. And not only that too, do the scriptures always tell us every little conversation that happens between biblical characters?
No, he could have said, I'll meet up with you next spring.
He could have said it, and it just didn't, the Bible just didn't print that. So that's why the scriptures make it very clear not to go beyond what is written, because we don't know everything. And later on, when you look at other scriptures, it doesn't appear that there was a problem between the two brothers and him separating with one another at this point, because they did meet up later on very clearly and spent a lot of time with each other.
Also, we have to take into consideration that God is moving Jacob in a direction. And also that Shechem was the first place that Abraham came when he left his father's place, right? And that's where God told him that he'd make a great nation of him. So if you put those things together, you're seeing that maybe God was directing him in a certain direction. It wasn't the direction of Seir, it was the direction of Shechem.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
we have to take that into consideration at all times.
And we'll see that in chapter 35. What you're saying is exactly what chapter 35 talks about. So let's begin now in chapter 34. And I've said this before as we're going through Genesis. From time to time, I'll start a chapter with, and then Satan appears. And here, sure enough here, you can see Satan is up to a little bit of mischief here, creating all kinds of problems. And we're going to see how Jacob and his family deal with the mischief they got to deal with here. And it's very serious, the situation. But it's also enlightening too in a lot of different ways. Verse 34. Now Diana, or Dinah, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Diana, I'm not sure. The daughter of Leah had born to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the land. All right. Before I go any further, if you were in a strange town, parents, and you don't know much about the surrounding area, but you knew it was a rough area of the city, and your teenage daughter says, I'm gonna go to the mall with my friends, we wanna hang out at the mall. How are you gonna react? Well, I see a lot of smiling faces and a lot of heads going like this. What's the problem? What's going on here? What does Dinah want to do? What's she curious about?
See how the others, see how they're living. I mean, she's curious.
Yeah, she's curious, wants to meet other women of the land, probably other women her own age, typical teenage behavior, not anything that's unusual. But if you're in a rough part of the world or city, most parents' antennas are gonna go up and go, whoa, wait a minute here. But she goes. She takes off and she goes out into this particular area. What do we know about where she's going? We do know quite a bit about where she's going. What kind of people is she going to be engaged with? These are Canaanites. What do we know about Canaanites?
They're idolaters. I mean, they worship idols.
Okay.
They're obviously with the worship of idols also comes a lot of sinful behavior.
Like what?
Sexuality, open sexuality, obviously worshiping God through drinking and partying.
A lot of that. Child sacrifice. These people were crazy. They were super, super, super evil. And what does God eventually do with all these people? He destroys them eventually because their wickedness had got so bad that he couldn't endure it anymore. The murder and open crazy sexuality among these people and the violence among these people. I mean, it was nothing to kill other people. It was just nothing. And the things they did that would appall us today to them was nothing. That's what everybody does. So anyhow, she goes out, verse 2. Then Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, the ruler of that area, saw her, and he took her and violated her. All right? Okay. She's out there with the young girls. What do usually young girls want to also look at?
Young boys.
Young boy. Boy, I'm glad everybody's being so honest today. the young boy. So she sees a guy, this guy sees her, and she's assuming what about the young guys in this area? What is she assuming, and wrongly assuming?
That they're gonna be similar.
Yeah, they're gonna be similar to her brothers. Wrong. And not only that, this Shechem guy, is he just a nobody? Who is he?
Prince.
He's a prince. His father's the leader, the chieftain of this particular area. He's not a nobody. So he takes her, and what does he do?
Rapes her.
He rapes her. He kidnaps her and rapes her right off. And then verse 3 it says his heart was drawn to the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl and spoke tenderly to her. And Shechem said to his father, "Get me this girl as my wife." So, how attracted is he to Diane?
Very.
Very.
Love at first sight.
Love, yeah, love at first sight.
Something.
Love at first sight.
He basically like overcame her. It wasn't, he just was used to getting what he wanted.
Yeah.
So he took her.
We have no idea how she felt about this either. I suspect she's probably a little overwhelmed and frightened and afraid, because now I think she realizes who she's dealing with, and she's probably fearing for her life, perhaps even at this time. Now she's probably getting to see what some of their religion is like and some of the things they do. How serious of a crime is rape and kidnapping in our culture, in our age right now?
Serious.
How serious?
Very, very.
What's the penalties for such crimes?
Years and years in prison.
Imprisonment, for the most part. It didn't always was that way, was it? It used to be worse. What's it like in Israelite communities for this crime for Israelites? What was their
That's
viewpoint on it?
It's dead.
It's death. You do something like this, you will die. You will be executed for this sin, no questions asked. So there's a big difference in how certain people view this. In Canaanites, how serious of a crime is it to them?
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And not only that, who's the guy that did it?
Privilege, wealthy.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're gonna come down on the chief's son.
She was also a foreigner, so, and foreigners in general are not given the same protection.
Yeah,
So no one would have taken up her case. Maybe somebody in the land, if they had also privilege, maybe, but not her.
yeah. They would kind of view her on the level of a slave, really. Just, yeah. So very, very lowly, in their minds. So let's read on here. Verse 5. When Jacob heard that his daughter Diana had been defiled, and his sons were in the field with his livestock, so he kept quiet about it until they came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor went out to talk with Jacob. Now Jacob's son had come in from the fields. As soon as they heard what had happened, they were filled with grief and fury because of Shechem had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing that should not be done. But Hamor said to them, "My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to me as his wife. Intermarry with us, give us your daughters, and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us, and the land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, and acquire property in it." Then Shechem said to Shechem now is talking, said to Dinah's father and brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes. I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I am to bring as great as you like, and I will pay whatever you ask me. Only give the girl to me as my wife." Okay, so first off, Shechem's father is at least smart enough to realize at this point that the girl he took was not a nobody to the family that he took her from. He realizes they're a large group of people. They have a chieftain too, and it's Jacob. So he goes to him, is beginning the process of bargaining for Diana. But before that, Jacob waits for his sons to come in from the fields. What's their reaction when they hear what happened?
Angry.
How angry? Let's use the actual words. They were filled with grief and fury. And what does fury mean? That's not a small emotion. When you say somebody's furious, I mean, you're looking at eyes bugging out, sweating, gritting teeth, tense body, rage. Very, very serious. And something that's not gonna go away quickly, that's for sure. So he says that he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel. I find that interesting. It says in Israel. It doesn't say in Canaan, it says in Israel, which the location for God's mind is this is Israel now, and this is Israel's people here that are in this situation. And it was a thing that they did that should not be done. Verse 8, but Hamor, what's his attitude? How's he viewing this whole situation? Is there a difference?
Yeah,
What's the difference?
he's philosophical about it.
Yeah, he is.
Let's just, make everything be all right. You marry our daughters, we marry your, our sons, we marry your daughters, things like that. Everything is all right. We can be buddies.
Yeah. Jacob and his sons are looking at this as a serious, very serious criminal offense. Hamor is looking at this as a financial negotiation.
Yeah.
That's the difference. He's looking at it for what he can get out of it, and what's he hoping to get out of the deal? Other than his son getting a wife.
An alliance, basically.
Yeah, he wants an alliance. He wants to be able to intermarry with his daughters and his sons. And how's Jacob gonna feel about that? The fact, just the intermarriage issue. How's Jacob gonna feel about that?
We're already told not to do that, so.
What's the reason Jacob went to Padam Aram in the first place? To get away from these very kind of people that God didn't want to marry. And now this guy, at the whispering of Satan in his ear, he said, yeah, let's intermarry with him. That's exactly what Satan would want him to do. Why? What would this do to Jacob and his group if they did that?
They'd be crossing God.
Yeah. They
Well,
would
he was,
corrupt.
he was using Israel, God was using Israel to keep basically, in essence, the Old Testament in place so that we have it. And the second thing he was doing was keeping the law in place so that Christ could fulfill it. So if he has all these other intermarriages, that whole thing could get destroyed,
It would be.
and then he might not even get to Christ. So that's really what God was doing, is trying to protect the Old Testament, the Word, and he was also trying to keep the law in place so Christ could fulfill it. Well, that really is God's goal through this whole thing, if you look at it. The other little piece I think is interesting, we probably should keep in mind here, the end of 33, it talks about, he wasn't supposed to go to Shechem, he was supposed to go to Bethel. That's what he had promised God, to go to Bethel. He goes to Shechem, what's he do? He buys land in Shechem. He's not even supposed to be there, and he's buying land. And then he builds an altar there that says God is here with us. So right there, he kind of slapped God in the face. Even though his faith was getting better, he still had slipped. And I don't know if that's why this happened, but my guess is probably God was showing him that you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And then, because right in 35, right after this is finished, God says, go to Bethel. And he goes.
Yeah.
So he was in the wrong place to start with.
Yeah, he's being lazy, and he needed to get on the stick and do what God told him to do.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he realized the danger him and his people were in by staying where they're at. They are going to influence them. There's just no way around it, and that's why.
What's interesting, they're only 11 miles apart.
Yeah.
But God was that precise. You don't need to be in Shechem. You need to be 11 miles farther south.
Yeah.
And he's, my opinion is he's teaching a lesson here.
Yeah,
Also, this is something that's in the mind of God also, back when he told Abraham that the cup is not yet full. So therefore, God knew that this was gonna happen later on. And this incident begins the physical destruction of the people of Canaan, to drive them out. So things have a way of working out. God works things work out the way that God wants it to work out,
yeah.
you know.
And a lot of these things are gonna work out differently than even Jacob thinks they're
Yeah.
gonna work out. God has plans that are beyond even what Jacob was thinking, which was not unusual in a lot of cases like this. So, even Shechem himself tries to bargain with the brothers. Can you imagine the brothers listening to the bargaining? And even, here's one thing too, if I was one of the brothers, and I heard him say, name the price, okay, you name whatever it is, I'll take it. Just give me the girl as my wife. I'd wanna take him apart right there, just for saying that alone. That is crossing the line. That's like telling me what you're gonna do with my sister. That's not asking anymore, that's telling. You're gonna take the money, I don't care how much it is, but you're gonna give me the girl. So, clever as they were, it begins another thing to happen here too. So, is this a big dilemma for Jacob? Yeah, this is huge. How to handle this issue is difficult. Jacob's got 11 sons here that are just furious with anger. Some of the younger ones might not have felt that way, but the older ones certainly would be. And there's no way they can hand over Diana to this situation. And in their mind, this is a criminal offense, and what do they want to do? How do they want to settle the issue?
It's revenge straight up.
I don't think it, well,
It's gonna be
revenge,
taken-
but,
It's gonna be taken, well, it's the punishment that was deserved according to.
Correct, yeah. yeah, this is the punishment that was deserved for such a crime, correct? Yes. And what was the punishment?
Yeah.
Now, after the brothers heard, he said, give me the woman, basically, I'll give you whatever price. What are the brothers thinking they want? They want to execute him.
Yeah.
They want to kill him right then and there. But there's a problem. Why don't they? Why don't they kill him right then and there?
It'd be war, because
It'd be war.
it's a big city, right?
Yeah, and you're
They don't
killing,
Kill a prince and stuff.
Yeah,
yeah, you're killing the prince and the king of the area. I mean, whoa, you're talking a serious issue behind the scenes here. That's gonna be creating a very difficult issue. And the Canaanites are looking at this very, very differently from their viewpoint. So to do what they really want to do would cause a great deal of problems for his family. They, in verse 13, gives us a little bit of a clue what's going to happen. Because their sister Diana had been defiled, Jacob's sons replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father. I get the feeling they might have talked with each other and trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to handle this? I don't see anything here about Jacob being involved in the conversation. I'm not sure where Jacob's at.
It's hard to believe anybody in Jacob's family would be deceitful.
Yeah. So, nonetheless, they got a plan. What do they tell Shechem? Okay, we got a few more minutes. Verse 14. They then said to them, we can't do such a thing. We can't give our sister to a man who is not circumcised. That would be a disgrace to us, and we'll give our consent to you on one condition only, that you become like us by circumcising all your males. Then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We will settle among you and become one people. But if you will not agree to this, be circumcised, we'll take our sister and go. Did they really mean that? No. Is being circumcised enough to make them one with the family of Israel? It's like saying faith alone saves you, or baptism alone saves you. It's a relationship with God. There's a lot more involved in the whole situation. Just by coming circumcised is not going to change much of anything. It's nothing more than getting a tattoo in their minds. Verse 18, their proposal seemed good to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man who was the most honored among all his father's household lost no time in doing what they said, because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of the city to speak to their fellow townsmen, and these men were friendly towards us. They said, let us live in our land, let them live in our land and trade in it. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters, they can marry ours, but the men will consent to live with us as one people, only on the condition that our males be circumcised as they themselves are. Won't their livestock, their property, and all their other animals become ours? Let us give our consent to them, and they will settle among us. This is all about money, greed, selfishness. That's all they're thinking in this whole thing. And of course they're saying, yeah, this sounds like a pretty good deal. So, we're running out of time here. I'm not sure if I get to the whole issue here. Verse 24, all the men who went out of the city gate agreed to Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male in the city was circumcised. 3 days later, while all of them were still in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Diana's brothers and their older brothers, took their swords and attacked the unsuspecting city, killing every male. They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword, took Diana from Shechem's house, and left. The sons of Jacob came upon the dead bodies in Ludus city where their sister had been defiled. They seized their flocks and their herds and donkeys and everything else of theirs in the city, and went out into the fields. They carried off all their wealth, all their women and children, taking as plunder everything in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me a stench to the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the people living in this land. We are few in numbers, and if they join forces against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed. But they replied, should we have treated our sister like a prostitute? So, got about a minute. So, their plan becomes very obvious what they're planning on doing. They're just going to be a little sneaky about it. How do they immobilize all the men in the city? It's kind of clever when you think about it. They made sure that they weren't going to be in fighting shape. And only 2 of Jacob's sons went out and killed them all. And they steal everything that they have. What's Jacob's reaction? He does not approve of it. More critical question. What does God think about Levi and Simeon? Was God pleased with what they did?
Doesn't sound like he condemned it
Let's look over in Genesis.
at this point.
Yeah. Good catch. It becomes very clear later on. We're not going to have time to look at this today because we're out of time. But I get the feeling that God didn't approve of it either, because first off, just from a general viewpoint, in our society, if somebody rapes somebody, you go and kill their whole family? No. So this becomes, they turn it into an act of war when it didn't have to be that way. But we'll talk about that next week. Now,
And
maybe in a couple of weeks.
they never discussed it with Jacob, you know, he's spiritual leader.
They did.
They got, oh no, but like you said, they were ready.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah, and one thing to remember too, always when biblical characters get into difficult situations, and a lot of times when they're really struggling with something, what's the first thing they should be doing? Praying.
Talk to God.
Talk to God about it. Do you see any of that here? No, not at all. All right.